One look across a crowded room changed everything. I didn't know her name, didn't know her story, but somehow I knew I had to find her again. Rain was coming down hard that Thursday afternoon. The kind of rain that soaks through your jacket in seconds and makes you want to run for the nearest shelter. I was rushing down the street with my portfolio tucked under my arm, already 10 minutes late for a client meeting. Being an architect means you're always juggling deadlines, always running from one meeting to the next. I pushed open the door to the coffee shop, and immediately the warm smell of roasted beans and cinnamon hit me. The place was packed. Every single table had someone sitting at it. Students with their laptops and textbooks spread everywhere, business people typing away on their phones, groups of friends laughing over their drinks. The noise was almost overwhelming. People talking, the espresso machine hissing, cups clinking against saucers. I squeezed through the crowd toward the counter, mumbling apologies as I bumped into people. My mind was racing. I needed to review the building plans one more time before the meeting. The client was particular about details, and I couldn't afford to mess this up. This project could make or break my reputation in the firm. After ordering my usual black coffee, I turned around to look for somewhere to sit. Maybe I could squeeze into a corner somewhere, pull out my plans, and do a quick review before my client arrived. That's when it happened. She was sitting by the window, alone, a sketchbook open in front of her. Her hair was dark, falling over her shoulders as she bent over her work. And then at that exact moment she looked up, our eyes met. I know how that sounds. I know people say things like that all the time in movies and books. But I'm telling you, something shifted in that moment. The noise of the coffee shop didn't disappear completely, but it faded. It became distant, like I was underwater and everything else was happening on the surface. All I could see was her. All I could focus on was those eyes looking directly into mine. She didn't smile. She didn't wave or nod or do any of the normal things people do when they accidentally make eye contact with a stranger. She just looked at me. Really looked at me. Like she was trying to figure something out. Like she recognized something she couldn't quite name. I don't know how long we stood there like that. Could have been 3 seconds. Could have been 30. Time felt weird and stretched out. My heart was doing this strange thing where it felt like it skipped a beat and then started racing to catch up. Then my phone rang. The sharp, jarring sound of my ringtone cut through everything. I blinked, startled, and reached for my pocket. When I looked back toward the window, she had already returned to her sketchbook. Her head was bent down again, her hand moving across the page. It was like the moment had never happened. My client was on the phone asking where I was, right? The meeting. I shook my head, trying to clear it, and told him I was already at the coffee shop. I spotted a corner booth that had just opened up and made my way over there. The meeting lasted about an hour. Or at least that's what my watch told me afterward. I honestly couldn't tell you much about what we discussed. I showed him the plans. I answered his questions. I must have said the right things because he seemed happy by the end. But my mind wasn't really there. I kept glancing toward the window seat. I couldn't help it. She was still there, completely absorbed in whatever she was drawing. The rain continued to pour outside, creating rivers down the glass beside her. The gray afternoon light made everything look soft and dreamlike. A few times I thought she might look up again. I found myself hoping she would, but she never did. What was wrong with me? I had just met someone's eyes across a crowded room. That was it. Nothing had actually happened. We hadn't spoken. We hadn't even smiled at each other. It was ridiculous to feel this distracted by a complete stranger. But I did feel distracted. More than distracted. There was this pull, this curiosity that I couldn't shake. Who was she? What was she drawing? Did she feel that same strange moment that I felt, or was it all in my head? My client finally stood up, shaking my hand and saying something about getting back to me next week. I nodded, smiled, said all the appropriate goodbyes. The moment he left, I looked back toward the window. The seat was empty. My stomach dropped in a way that surprised me. She was gone. Just like that. I sat there for a moment staring at the empty chair, the vacant table. Had I imagined how intense that moment was? Maybe she hadn't felt anything at all. Maybe I was just some random guy who happened to stare at her for a few seconds too long in a coffee shop. I gathered my things slowly, still glancing at the window seat like she might magically reappear. As I walked past the table on my way out, something caught my eye. There on the windowsill was a pencil. Just an ordinary wooden pencil, the kind you can buy anywhere. But it was the only thing left behind where she had been sitting. I picked it up without thinking. It was well used, the eraser worn down, the wood showing teeth marks where someone had chewed on it while thinking. It felt wrong to take it, but it also felt wrong to leave it there. At least that's what I told myself. Really, I just wanted something, anything, to prove that she had been real, that the moment had been real. I slipped the pencil into my pocket and walked out into the rain. The rest of that evening felt off balance. I went back to my apartment, tried to work on some designs, but I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about those eyes, about the way everything else had faded when she looked at me. I had never experienced anything like that before. It felt important somehow, significant, but I had no way to explain why. That night, lying in bed, I pulled the pencil out of my jacket pocket and turned it over in my hands. Under the lamplight, I could see faint letters printed on the side. A brand name I didn't recognize. I set it on my nightstand and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I told myself, I would forget about this. Tomorrow. It would just be a weird little moment in a coffee shop on a rainy afternoon. Life would go back to normal. I would focus on my work, meet with clients, design buildings like I always did. But even as I thought it, I knew it wasn't true. Something had shifted. Something had changed in that brief moment when a stranger locked eyes with me across a crowded room. I didn't know her name. I didn't know anything about her. But somehow I knew I needed to see her again. I just had no idea how I was going to make that happen. I went back to that coffee shop the very next day. I told myself it was because I liked the coffee there. Because it was convenient. Because it was a good place to work. All lies, of course. I knew exactly why I was going back. She wasn't there. I ordered my coffee, sat down at a different table, and tried to work on my laptop. Every time the door opened, my head would snap up. Every time I saw someone with dark hair, my heart would jump. But it was never her. After 2 hours of pretending, to review building codes, I finally gave up and went home. Saturday came and I was back again. This time I sat in the corner where I could see the whole shop. I watched people come and go, studied every face, felt like a complete fool doing it, but I couldn't stop myself. My best friend called me that afternoon, asking if I wanted to grab lunch. I made up some excuse about being busy with work. The truth was I didn't want to miss her if she showed up. She didn't show up. By Sunday, I was starting to feel pathetic. What was I doing? Stalking a coffee shop, hoping to run into someone I'd made eye contact with for a few seconds. This wasn't normal behavior. This wasn't me. I was usually practical, logical. I didn't believe in things like love at first sight or destiny or any of that romantic nonsense. And yet, Monday morning found me right back there. Same coffee shop. Same hope. Same disappointment when she didn't appear. The barista started recognizing me. A young guy with a nose ring and tired eyes. On Tuesday, when I walked in for the 5th time in 6 days, he gave me a knowing smile. "The usual?" he asked. I nodded, feeling embarrassed. Was I really that predictable, now? As he made my coffee, he said casually, "You're here a lot lately. Looking for someone?" My face must have given me away because he laughed. "Don't worry, man, I'm not judging. Is it the artist girl? The one who sits by the window?" My heart jumped. Artist girl? Yeah, she comes in sometimes, always drawing. Pretty girl with dark hair? He handed me my coffee. She usually comes on Thursdays, that's her day. Thursdays. I had first seen her on a Thursday. That meant I had been coming back on all the wrong days. Hope flared up in my chest again, bright and almost painful. "Thanks," I said, probably too enthusiastically. He just grinned. "Good luck, man." I rearranged my entire schedule that week to make sure I was free on Thursday afternoon. Moved a meeting to the morning. Told my boss I needed to work remotely in the afternoon. I felt ridiculous but also determined. This was my chance. Thursday came, and I was at the coffee shop by 2 in the afternoon. I got my usual spot in the corner with a view of the whole place. Opened my laptop. Pretended to work. Waited. 3 o'clock came and went. Then 4. The afternoon light started to fade. People came and went. None of them were her. By 5:30, I was ready to pack up and admit defeat. Maybe she'd stopped coming. Maybe she'd found a different coffee shop. Maybe the barista was wrong about her schedule. Then the door opened, and my heart stopped. But it wasn't her. Just someone with similar hair who, when she turned, looked nothing like the woman I remembered. The disappointment hit me harder than it should have. I started packing up my things. That's when I noticed something, wedged between the cushions of the window seat where she had been sitting. A corner of something sticking out. I walked over and pulled it free. It was a sketchbook, small, spiral-bound, with a worn black cover. My hands were shaking as I opened it. The pages inside were filled with drawings, beautiful, detailed pencil sketches of the city, street corners I recognized, buildings I'd walked past 1,000 times but had never really seen the way she'd captured them, people sitting on benches lost in thought, the curve of a staircase, the pattern of shadows through a fence. Every page showed incredible talent. Whoever had drawn these saw the world differently than most people. They noticed details. They found beauty in ordinary things. I found myself turning page after page, amazed at what I was seeing. On the inside cover, written in small, neat handwriting, was a name. Aria. Finally, I had a name for the face that had been haunting me for over a week. I closed the sketchbook carefully and took it to the counter. The same barista was working. "Hey, someone left this," I said. "The artist girl you mentioned. Can you keep it here in case she comes back for it?" He took it and tucked it safely under the counter. "Sure thing. Want to leave a note or something?" A note. My mind went blank for a second. What could I possibly say? Then I grabbed a sticky note and pen from the counter and wrote quickly before I could overthink it. "I found your sketchbook. Your drawings are amazing. I'd like to return this to you personally. Call me." I added my phone number and stuck the note inside the front cover. "Thanks," I told the barista. "No problem. Hope she calls." I walked home that evening with my hands in my pockets, feeling lighter than I had in days. At least now there was a chance, a possibility. I had done something instead of just waiting and hoping. The next week crawled by. Every time my phone rang, I jumped. But it was always work calls, or my mom checking in, or friends making plans. Never the call I was waiting for. Thursday came again. I went back to the coffee shop, but I already knew she wouldn't be there. If she'd been looking for her sketchbook, she would have asked the barista about it by now. She would have found my note. The fact that she hadn't called meant she either hadn't come back or she didn't want to call. Days turned into another week. I started to lose hope. Maybe she didn't care about the sketchbook. Maybe those drawings hadn't meant as much to her as they seemed to mean. Maybe I was just a stranger who had found something she'd already forgotten about. I tried to move on, focused on work, went out with friends, even went on a date that one of my colleagues set up. Nice woman, good conversation. But the whole time, I kept thinking about a pair of eyes across a crowded coffee shop, about drawings of the city, about a name written inside a worn sketchbook. 2 weeks after I'd found the sketchbook, I was at home on a Sunday evening. I'd just finished making dinner and was settling in to watch something mindless on TV when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Probably spam. But something made me pick up. "Hello?" There was a pause. Then a voice I'd never heard but somehow felt I'd recognize anywhere. "Hi. Is this the person who found my sketchbook?" My heart started racing. My mouth went dry. I stood up without thinking. "Yes," I managed to say. "Yes, that's me." Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. There was a slight tremor in it, like she was nervous about making this call. That made two of us. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it through the phone. "I'm so sorry it took me this long to call," she said. "I've been out of town for work and I only just got back today. I went to the coffee shop this afternoon and the barista gave me my sketchbook with your note." "Don't apologize," I said quickly. "I'm just glad you called. I was worried you might not care about getting it back." She laughed, but it sounded shaky. "Not care? I've been going crazy looking for it. That sketchbook has months of work in it. Drawings for my portfolio, ideas for projects. I thought I'd lost it forever." There was a pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. I tried to think of what to say next, how to keep this conversation going, how to not sound like a complete idiot. "Your drawings are incredible," I said finally. "I hope you don't mind that I looked through it. I just wanted to see if there was a name inside so I could try to return it." "You really looked at them?" Her voice changed, became softer somehow. "More interested?" "Yeah, the way you see the city. It's different from how most people see it. You notice things, the details in the architecture, the way light falls on buildings, the people just existing in their daily lives. It's really beautiful work." Another pause. Longer this time. "Thank you," she said quietly. "That means a lot. Most people don't really look at my work like that. Well, I'm an architect, so I might be biased. I spend all day thinking about buildings and spaces, but what you do is different. You capture the feeling of places, not just what they look like." "You're an architect?" She sounded surprised. "That's funny. I'm an illustrator. I guess we both see the world through design in different ways." We talked for another minute about nothing important, but I could feel us both dancing around what we really wanted to say. Finally, I took a breath and just went for it. "Would you want to meet tomorrow, so I can give you back the sketchbook? We could meet at the coffee shop, same place where you lost it." "Actually," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Could we meet there on Tuesday afternoon instead, around 3? I have some deadlines I need to finish tomorrow." "Tuesday at 3, perfect, I'll be there." "Okay, and, thank you again for keeping it safe. You could have just left it at the coffee shop, but the fact that you wanted to return it yourself, that's really kind." After we hung up, I sat on my couch staring at my phone. Tuesday felt impossibly far away. I had the whole rest of Sunday, all of Monday, and half of Tuesday to get through before I saw her. Before I could find out if that moment we'd shared was real or just something I'd built up in my head. Monday at work was torture. I couldn't focus on anything. My boss asked me 3 times if I was feeling okay. I kept checking my phone, even though I had no reason to think she'd call again. That evening, I changed my outfit 4 times before finally giving up and just wearing jeans and a BU. The next 3 months felt like living in a dream. Aria and I fell into this easy rhythm where every day felt natural, like we'd always been part of each other's lives. We'd meet after work, walk through the city for hours, stopping to get food from random street vendors or sitting in parks watching the sunset. She showed me the city through her artist's eyes, pointing out things I'd walked past 1,000 times but never really seen, the way shadows fell across building facades, the patterns in old brick walls, the beauty in rust and decay and time. I showed her the intentional design behind the structures she loved to draw, explained why certain buildings felt welcoming while others felt cold, taught her about load-bearing walls and architectural movements and the stories behind famous buildings in our city. She'd pull out her sketchbook and draw while I talked, her pencil moving across the page in quick, confident strokes. My friends noticed the change in me immediately. I was happier, lighter somehow. I actually laughed at their jokes instead of just giving polite smiles. My best friend pulled me aside one night and said, "Whoever this person is, I like what they're doing to you." When I finally introduced Aria to my friend group, she fit in perfectly. By the end of the night, my friends were joking around with her like they'd known her for years. Her friends embraced me too. A group of artists and designers who met weekly at a bar to show each other their work and give feedback. They welcomed me into their world even though I couldn't draw to save my life. I'd sit there watching them sketch and critique and encourage each other, amazed at how they saw beauty and possibility in everything. On weekends, we'd go to art galleries and museums. Aria would analyze the paintings while I studied the architecture of the buildings themselves. We'd argue playfully about which was more important, the art inside or the structure holding it. Neither of us ever won because we both knew they needed each other. She started keeping a toothbrush at my place. I started keeping a change of clothes at hers. We never had a conversation about it. It just happened naturally, like everything else between us. Some mornings I'd wake up and she'd already be awake, sitting by the window in my apartment with her sketchbook, drawing the city as it woke up. Those were my favorite mornings. 3 months in, I was completely in love with her. I hadn't said it yet, wasn't sure when the right time would be, but I felt it in every moment we spent together. In the way she laughed at my terrible jokes, in how she'd grab my hand when we walked through crowded streets, in the comfortable silence we could share without feeling the need to fill it with words. Then one evening, everything changed. I had come over to her place after work. She lived in a small studio apartment that was basically organized chaos. Art supplies everywhere, sketches pinned to the walls, half-finished projects on every surface. I loved it. It felt like stepping into her mind, seeing how she organized her creative world. She was making dinner when I noticed something on her desk. A glossy brochure with a picture of Florence on the cover. Artist Residency Program, Florence, Italy, it read. 1-year intensive study with master artists. My stomach dropped. What's this? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. She turned from the stove and I saw her face change. Something shuddered behind her eyes. Oh, that. I applied for it months ago, way before we met. I actually forgot I'd even applied. Forgot? I looked down at the brochure again. It was well worn, like someone had read it multiple times. This looks pretty important to forget about. She came over and sat on the couch, gesturing for me to sit next to her. When I did, she took a deep breath. I got accepted. The letter came yesterday. The words hit me like a physical blow. Accepted. 1 year. Florence. I felt my whole world tilting sideways. That's amazing, I said. Because what else could I say? This is everything you've worked for, right? A chance to study with the best artists in the world?
Daniel, when do you leave?
She looked down at her hands. 6 weeks. The program starts at the beginning of September. 6 weeks. We'd only had 3 months together and now we had 6 more weeks before she left for an entire year. The math felt cruel and unfair. You should go, I said firmly. Obviously, you should go. This is an incredible opportunity. We need to talk about what this means, she said quietly. But I wasn't ready for that conversation. Not yet. I changed the subject, asked about dinner, made jokes about how I couldn't cook to save my life while she was clearly a chef. She let me redirect, but I could see the worry in her eyes, the unspoken question hanging between us. The next few weeks were strange. We still saw each other constantly, but there was this shadow over everything now. The awareness that our time was limited, that soon she'd be on a plane to Italy and I'd be here. And we had no idea what that meant for us. We never talked about it directly. Not about long-distance relationships or waiting or what we were to each other. I think we were both afraid that saying it out loud would make it too real, would force us to make decisions neither of us wanted to make. I threw myself into supporting her preparations, helped her organize her portfolio, listened to her practice her introduction speech in Italian, went with her to buy art supplies she'd need for the residency. Every time she looked at me with gratitude and something that looked like sadness, I'd smile and tell her how excited I was for her. I was lying. I was terrified. With 2 weeks left, we had our first real fight. We were at my place, and she was talking about finding an apartment in Florence, and suddenly, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Why are you telling me all this? I snapped. Why are you sharing these details like I'm going to be part of it when we both know I won't be? She looked shocked. What do you mean? You're leaving. For a year. We've never talked about what happens after you go because we both know what happens. This ends. It has to end. Why does it have to end? Her voice rose too. Why are you being so fatalistic about this? Because I'm being realistic. You're going to be in Italy, living your dream, meeting new people, having incredible experiences. You should have all of that without feeling guilty about someone back home. That's not your decision to make for me. I'm trying to be supportive. No, you're trying to make this easier by pretending you don't care. Tears were streaming down her face now. You're trying to let me go before I even leave so it won't hurt as much when I'm gone. The truth of her words hit me hard. She was right. I was trying to protect myself, trying to start grieving the loss of us before it even happened. I don't want to be the reason you don't go, I said quietly. I don't want you to resent me someday because you gave up your dreams. And I don't want you to give up on us before we even try to make this work. She shot back. We stared at each other across my living room. Both of us hurt. Both of us scared. Both of us not knowing how to bridge the gap between what we wanted and what reality was offering us. Maybe we need some space, she said finally, to think about what we really want. Maybe we do, I agreed, even though the words felt like poison in my mouth. She left that night. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of silence. We didn't call. Didn't text. I told myself it was better this way. Cleaner. Let her focus on preparing for Italy without the complication of us. Let me start adjusting to life without her. But every day felt wrong. Every morning I woke up reaching for her before remembering she wasn't there. Every evening I'd see something interesting and pull out my phone to text her before stopping myself. The city looked different without her beside me. Grayer somehow, less alive. The night before she was supposed to leave, I almost called her 100 times. Typed out messages and deleted them. Stood outside her apartment building but couldn't make myself go up. In the end, I didn't call. Didn't text. Didn't go see her. I told myself I was doing the right thing, giving her the freedom to start her new life without looking back. I told myself a lot of lies in those days. The first month after Aria left was the hardest. I kept expecting to run into her on the street. Kept forgetting she wasn't just across town. Every Thursday I'd find myself near that coffee shop where we met, and I'd have to force myself to keep walking past it. Going inside without her felt wrong. She emailed me once a week after she left. Just a short message saying she'd arrived safely, that Florence was beautiful, that the residency program was intense but amazing. She ended it with, "I hope you're doing well." So formal, so distant, like we were old acquaintances catching up, not two people who'd spent every day together for months. I wrote back something equally polite and impersonal, and that was it. We didn't email again. I tried to move on, threw myself into work like never before, took on the biggest projects, stayed late at the office, volunteered to handle the difficult clients nobody else wanted. My boss was thrilled with my dedication. My friends were worried but didn't push. They'd ask if I wanted to hang out, and I'd make excuses about deadlines. 2 months after Aria left, I won an award for a cultural center design I'd been working on. It was a big deal in our field. People congratulated me. My firm threw a small celebration. I smiled and said thank you and felt absolutely nothing. The only person I wanted to share it with was in Italy, and we hadn't spoken in weeks. I did go on a date, just one. A woman from a friend's office. She was nice, interesting, pretty. We had dinner, talked about normal things, laughed at each other's stories. At the end of the night, she invited me back to her place. I made up an excuse about an early meeting the next day. The truth was, sitting across from her, all I could think about was how she wasn't Aria, how her laugh didn't make my chest feel warm, how looking at her didn't make the rest of the world fade away. I checked Aria's social media sometimes late at night when I couldn't sleep. She posted photos occasionally. Her artwork displayed in a gallery, a sunset over the Arno River, pictures with her residency friends, all of them laughing and holding wine glasses. She looked happy. That should have made me happy too. Instead, it just made me feel more empty. 6 months passed. Then 7. Then 8. I got used to the emptiness. Started to accept that this was just how things were now. You meet someone who changes everything and then they leave and you learn to live in the after. Then in the 9th month of her being gone, my boss called me into his office with an opportunity. "We've got a potential project in Florence," he said, spreading out documents on his desk. "A museum wants to add a new wing. Contemporary design, but needs to blend with the historical building. It's a big commission. Complicated. Would require someone on site for at least 3 months to oversee the planning and initial construction." I immediately thought of you, Florence. The word hit me like a lightning strike. "I know it's a big ask," my boss continued. "Living abroad for 3 months isn't easy. But you're the best person for this. Your work on the Cultural Center shows you understand how to honor historical architecture while adding modern elements. Plus, you don't have family obligations keeping you here." I should have told him about Aria, should have mentioned that Florence wasn't just any city to me, but I didn't, because a wild, desperate hope was blooming in my chest. A chance, maybe, possibly.